Welcome back to Horn Takes, the best Texas football and baseball talk destination on the web. This is the Bullpen with Sean, Mark, and Zach. Guys, how we doing tonight?
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I won't cover you up forever, Zach. But I made a cool graphic, so I thought, why not put that cool graphic on there?
Love that.
This fixed. Yeah, we'll get this fixed. Anyways, welcome to the show, guys. As usual, we got Zach Sim from orangebloods.com. We've got Mark from Occupy Left Field. Always thanks to these guys for joining. Chuck Oertli was going to join with us tonight, but had some stuff come up, so we'll be missing Chuck tonight. But that's all right. We will move on and have a great show. Texas baseball gets the sweep over Dartmouth. We had a 4-3 game on Friday, a 3-2 game on Saturday, an offensive explosion on Sunday with a 4-1 game. Weekend thoughts?
Pitching and defense will win you a lot of games. And, they weren't perfect by any means, but they did a dang good job in limiting anything that came across. They really battled beside the conditions. I think the conditions were just that's brutal to play baseball in that weather. The coaches even themselves were like, this was terrible until about Sunday afternoon, like fifth or sixth inning when the sun finally came out. So,
yeah, same on my side, Sean. I'll be honest, I take very little away from the Friday and Saturday games when you're playing in those type of conditions, right? 35 degrees, wet in some cases. You're not going to see good baseball in those situations, right? And I think when you do get weekends like that from time to time in February, I am far less critical if you come out of those games with a win. All that matters to me at the end of those games is the final score, and we'll figure everything else out later. So I was glad the pitching did well. Saw some good things from the infield and the defense as well. But I think those bats are going to need to wait a couple more days until it thaws, warms up for them to get back in the swing of the thing. So I'm excited to watch them play tomorrow and what should be really nice weather. And then obviously in Las Vegas over the weekend. So hopefully we'll get back to normal from a temperature and weather perspective.
Yeah, initial thoughts, for me is the first thing you think is, man, they left the bats in Arlington. We crushed the ball in Arlington. Obviously it's indoors. 72 degrees, I think, is what they keep the temperature in that joint. So obviously completely different conditions. We saw, man, God bless the people that showed up Friday night at the Dish. We saw some people that were bundled up extremely heavily. And those guys, real troopers. There's absolutely, me and Diane talked about it yesterday on the day drinking, man. We were like, there ain't no way. We used to do that with our son, and we didn't even like to do that. So yeah, it's for just to go watch baseball. It's not like, our son, man, that'd be really tough. And a lot of those people showed up. A lot of people showed up on Saturday, and it was, I don't know if it was quite as crummy Saturday, but it still looked pretty brutal. Like just seeing the people in the stands, people did not look like they were having a great time up in the stands, just sitting there. And then lo and behold, Sunday, the sun comes, sixth inning, something like that. Last third of the game, the sun's out. It looks like a real baseball game. So that was exciting. If you're watching right now, go ahead and check us out in the chat. Chat your questions. We'll do our best to answer some questions throughout the show, and you might win some tickets to some Texas baseball games. I got a lot of tickets to Texas baseball games, y'all, and I can't go to all of them. So chat your questions. We'll answer them. You can win some tickets. Cold weather, man. So let's I put a poll up, and I'm going to do a poll on y'all like every time because that's what I do. I'm a poll guy. Questions pop in my head, and I go, oh, I got to put a poll up on that. So I did this poll, and it's what's the coldest temperatures you're willing to endure to watch Texas baseball? And I threw it on Longhorn Twitter, and I thought I'd start at about 60 degrees because I think there's a pretty big difference between 60 and above and 60 and below. I think a 60 is a good split. Like you're going to find people that you're going to start cutting people out, I think, about 60. And so interestingly enough, 20% of the people that responded said anything below 60, I'm not coming. Then we had 30% said nothing below 50. So we just chopped out 50% of the Texas Longhorn fan base that responded to this poll. And we weren't even close to that. And then you got your nothing below 40 at 16%. And then the crazy one, cold, bring it on. I don't give a damn. 33% said I'll go sit in the cold to watch Texas baseball. Listen, they announced the Friday night attendance at like 6,000 people or something like that. There might have been, Zach, you were there. There might have been 50 people in the stands. Am I off on that?
No, it was a pretty small crowd. Even on a Saturday, they announced it at 6,300 and something. And I looked about and I was like, I know y'all are joking, but I will give them this. When they announce the crowds, it's always based on number of tickets sold, never on actual tickets scanned. But still, yeah, we always get a good laugh at that because Tuesday night game and there's 1,000 people there, and you're like, where's the other four? Are they occupied left field? Like, where the heck are the other 4,000 people?
Yeah, they're hanging out at the tailgate. That's exactly what's going on. So, obviously, a really crummy first home week for the Texas Longhorns in terms of weather. I think the weather was bad a lot of places. And so, to me, looking at that game or looking at those games, looking at that series, I think, we talked about it on last Monday. We want to get a sweep. Like, this is a weekend where you want to get a sweep. And the guys were able to go in there, get the sweep. It wasn't always pretty, but they got it done. And I think, that's about the best you can hope for. I mean, listen, Texas A&M dropped a game to Cal Poly. LSU dropped a game to Omaha. I didn't even know Omaha was a school, and I'm being dead serious. Is that in Omaha, Nebraska? There's a college called Omaha.
It is, yeah.
See, I didn't even know that. So
not even the biggest baseball school in Omaha, right? That would be Creighton. So it's kind of like the second fiddle school there in Omaha, Nebraska. So
yeah, it's little brother.
And Omaha had a no-hitter going into the 8th inning against LSU. So
I mean, right on Saturday, right? The game they won, and then I heard the Friday game. I didn't pay any attention to it, but I heard the Friday game was really competitive as well.
Yeah, it was. They had two competitive games. They won the first one, and then LSU pulled out the second game. But yeah, it was up until that third game, it was a good series. I mean, even the Cal Poly A&M series, Cal Poly was ahead against A&M up until the 6th inning in the game one, and then A&M pulled it out. And then in game two, it was not nearly as close, but I mean, Cal Poly battled pretty well all weekend and then got the win on Sunday. So it's always interesting with those small schools where they might have one guy and he's the guy, right? Like there's one guy offensively, there's one guy pitching, and it's always the depth, but sometimes they're able to pull something special together. So,
yeah, I mean, if your one guy has a good game, goes 3 for 4 or something like that and puts the ball in play for extra bases, I mean, that can be enough to win a baseball game, provided your one guy pitcher is doing well on the mound as well. So, point being, I think a lot of Texas. I saw it on Longhorn Twitter on Friday night. 4-3. What's going on, man? We almost blew that one, and And I'm just like, guys, it's freaking freezing cold. It's the second. It's the fourth game of the season. Man, just win because nobody's gonna care in May what the score was of this Dartmouth series. All they're gonna care about is Texas won 3 games against Dartmouth, and they didn't drop a game to a team they should have had no business dropping a game to. So I know it sucks to just barely win baseball games, but hey, this pitching staff, you mentioned it, Zach, man, they looked really good. Let's talk about it. Only 6 runs the entire weekend for this Texas pitching staff, 24 Ks, 1 extra base hit. Dartmouth hit 163 for the day, or for the weekend, excuse me. And this Texas pitching staff put up a 1.67 ERA, if I did my math right, and I think I did my math right. So an outstanding weekend on the bump, even though, Spencer wasn't quite as sharp Friday. I don't think that Harrison was quite as sharp on Saturday. But then Big Cade Bean comes back, and I say Big Cade Bean. He's probably like the smallest pitcher on the team or close to it. Cade Bean comes back with a really good outing compared to his outing last weekend on Sunday. So, and then all the relievers did a really great job as well. Talk to us about the pitching, Zach, Mark. What was something that you noticed that maybe we didn't notice out of the first weekend with this pitching staff?
I just thought they weren't as sharp, and a lot of it I put down towards the weather. It's really hard to get a good grip on that baseball when it's super cold. Your fingers aren't feeling completely perfect, so you don't get as much spin or maybe not as much break. For Spencer, I thought honestly he did a good job. The 5 walks weren't ideal, but it was more so just him not being able to get the same break that he normally gets. And to Dartmouth's credit, right, they were taking balls. They were trying to go deep in counts, and So that worked against him. From a Luke standpoint, again, I thought he did fine. It was just the offense didn't really give him any support, but he battled throughout, and then the bullpen came in and did a good job. And then Sunday, I thought Cade Bean pitched better than what most people probably remember and give him credit for. He had to battle, but most people remember the first inning. But then after the first inning, he went, 1 up or 1, 2, 3, and then had another really good inning after that. And probably the story of the weekend, obviously, is Dylan Volantis. He's the freshman, and everyone knows he's a superstar in the making. It's just you don't want to put too much too early. And Schlossnagel's talked about this a couple different times and said, look, I saw what happened to Ryan Prager in 2021. He came in as a freshman, and he was going to be the guy. And then we got into the SEC grind, and he's like, he started out at 91 miles an hour, and by the end of the season, he was like 85, 86. He's like, he got ground down. He goes, I'm not going to do it again. He goes, I don't care what my record looks like. I'm protecting the kid, and I'm protecting his arm. And so, I think they want to put him in the starting job right now. At the same time, they're going to protect the kid and have him fresh for later on at the end of the season when they really, really need him in that starting role. So.
Yeah. I think what stood out to me, Zach and Sean, that I really liked, right, is we saw a different group of pitchers really step up this weekend, right? It wasn't necessarily Spencer and Harrison, like you mentioned, but every day there was somebody that came out of the pen that really caught my attention, right? It was Burns on Friday coming in and closing the door. And then on Saturday, it was Duplantier coming in and looking great for over 3 innings, and Grubbs coming in and doing his job at the end of the game. And then yesterday, Volantis was just electric. His stuff is so nasty. It was fun to watch him pitch, and he was doing what we love. He was rolling ground balls all over the infield at one point, and just making short work of Dartmouth. So I was encouraged by that we saw just another grouping of pitchers prove that they have really good stuff, and that they're going to be hopefully reliable pieces in the bullpen. And I did want to go back to your graphic and just call out all of the liars, the 33.6% that said that they'll watch baseball in any conditions, because that is not
Where
true.
were you guys at?
I didn't go to the game on Friday. So when they rescheduled the game, I actually had a dental appointment and then an afternoon work meeting. And with me being in Arlington the weekend before and going to Vegas this weekend, I wasn't going to try and move stuff around at the last minute. So, but I heard there was like literally 50 people at the game on Friday. So
yeah, it looked really sparse.
Yeah.
Cameron Reed says, do we think Volantis will get a starting job? He showed he could go innings. He certainly did show he could go innings. Zach, I think you spoke to it. You don't want to throw his stuff is ready, I think. I mean, if I had to pick any one thing about him from a stuff perspective, and it was more last weekend than this weekend, the command on the fastball, his breaking pitch is absolutely disgusting. And I think he kind of pitches backwards because he can locate that pitch so well. And that's what keeps these hitters off guard. But when he really has to throw a fastball, at least last weekend, it was like, man, he just it wasn't quite there. And I that's not a negative thing on Dylan Volantis. He's a freshman pitching on a really big stage very early in his career. But I think to Zach's point, I think he's a guy that could definitely be in that 3-guy rotation. He's certainly going to be a guy that we see out of the bullpen that's going to be able to give this team a lot of innings if he keeps up what he did over this weekend. But you don't want to bring those guys on too quickly. It's a long season, and you certainly don't want to burn them up in these types of games and these types of series. Like if you're going to have to burn guys up, let's do it in SEC play. Try to get some big wins out of that. Thanks for the question, Cameron. Cameron, if you would like tickets to the game tomorrow night, let me know. Shoot us a chat. Shoot me an email at horntakespodcast.gmail.com, and we'll get that squared away. Also, shout out to Cody Jones, always in here. Thanks for being here, Cody. Tell your friends.
Cody. Yeah. Do you guys know Cody? He's a great guy, man, from Mississippi. He came down from for the Arlington series.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've never met Cody, but he likes to come to the show, so I like that. So, I thought, and I said Spencer didn't look as sharp. I said Harrison didn't look as – they all looked good. Nobody really came in. The only person that came in and just was abruptly gone was Mercer, and he only got one batter, and he walked him, and I think that was just a matchup type deal, and so he was going to get that one batter, couldn't get it done. But I don't think any of the guys that were in for a while, everybody pitched pretty well. I mean, I say pretty well. I think that's cutting it short. I mean, this pitching staff so far has been ultra impressive. Riojas, not quite as dominant as he was over in Arlington, but still a very good outing for him. You mentioned Thomas Burns. Dre Duplantier was a guy that I was really excited to see come in. He's just got he's a guy that has really good stuff too. He reminds me a lot of LBJ, not in the way they pitch, but just the fact that they have the stuff, and it's like a confidence thing. It's like a mental thing. We got to go out, if he can just harness that and stay confident, I think he's a guy that can give you some good innings as well for the Longhorns. Defense, man, I thought the defense was pretty solid. We did have some errors, but we did have our first errorless game of the season on Sunday. You go back to the weather, man, everything sucks in the cold. It sucks to hit. It sucks to catch. Obviously, you talked about it, Zach. You can't feel the ball. These poor kids, I watched them on Saturday blowing into their hands. And I'm like, dude, you're just making your hands colder. That's not helping your hands warm up. But there's really nothing else to do. I mean, you can't wear gloves. So, but yeah, I mean, I thought, if you look at the weather, you look at just all the factors, the external factors. I thought the team played really well defensively and pitching wise. 2 double plays. Always like to see that. I thought Mendoza looked really good Sunday at second base. A lot of putouts, a lot of plays that he made look really simple, but we've talked about that before. They're just not that type of simple play. What do we think about the defense?
Zach, you want to start with that one, or I can go? I agree with you. I thought the conditions taken into account that the infield looked pretty solid. Jalen had some good plays yesterday. It was Mendoza, right, that had that hot shot backhand late in the game yesterday that looked really good. So I think Sunday the defense really did look solid. Again, I'm not going to take away from mistakes in the conditions like Friday and Saturday, wet and cold weather, but I think they were solid enough. And that's really what I want to see is them kind of gelling as a middle infield. Rodriguez had, I forget which game it was, if it was Friday or Saturday. I think it might've been Saturday. He had an error in the first inning, right? And then came back and made a diving catch a couple of pitches later, that was really big. So that you could tell that was big for his confidence. He was kind of pumping himself up as he went back to third base after making that diving catch. So I see a lot of great potential there in the infield. And I really do think they're going to be a solid defensive club from an infield perspective.
Yeah, the play you're talking about with the hot shot backhand at the middle for Mendoza on Sunday. I actually was talking to Schlossnagle this morning on our Monday morning show, and he was talking about, this was Dartmouth's first series of the year, and so they didn't have any video on them. Like, they can watch video from last year, but guys change. For example, their Friday starter sat at 89 as a tops out last year, and on Friday night he was up to 94 and had a little bit different arm angle. And so, when you have to make those adjustments in the series, you start to see things. And it was funny because Schlossnagle was like, yeah, he's like, the one guy was tearing us up right up the middle at the beginning of the game, and we moved Mendoza over and hot shot right back to him. He goes, those are the kind of in-game adjustments you start to make when you have more analytics, when you have more video, you start to see. But as far as the defensive infield, listen, Adrian Rodriguez is a freshman. He's playing at third base, which is one of the toughest places. He's going to make some errors here and there. But to Mark's point, that diving catch was not an easy play. He had to read it perfectly off the bat. It was tailing away from him, going, back into the towards the dugout. And that's a really tough play to make. And so the only thing I didn't really necessarily care for this week was, they wanted to get Borbas some at bat, so they started him at second base, and that's just not his natural position. He doesn't move laterally the same way that a Mendoza or a Gumbo or one of those guys does. So I thought, it doesn't necessarily set him up for success. And sure enough, like baseball, it's going to find you, right? And it found him right away early on. But
yeah,
he held his own. Like, he still adjusted and he he did okay. It's just for people going, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, that's just not his strength. He's a corner guy. And so
yeah, absolutely.
they're just looking at ways to get guys at bats, and you're going to have to see some of that at times. So, but yeah, I thought defensively they still played very well for everything.
Yeah, that was an interesting move by Schlossnagle. We were headed out of the house right when the lineups came out, and I'm trying to fumble on my phone to get the game on and stuff. And so I didn't even realize that Borba was starting at second base. And when we got settled in at the restaurant, I saw him try to make a play, but I still didn't know it was him. And I was like, man, that did not look like, Mendoza. That didn't look like a guy with some cat-like skills, And nothing against Borba, like you said, he's just a corner guy. He's a big dude. He's a corner guy. I mean, he probably hasn't played second base in forever, if at all. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting move, and I wanted to ask you about that. Like, to me, that's just hey, I got to try to get this guy in the lineup. I got to try to get his back going because I'm looking at him. I think you're looking at, to me, and again, I'm not the smartest dude on the planet, but it looks to me like Schloss is rotating Winfield, Borba, and Tommy Farmer, trying to figure out like who's going to play left field and who's going to be my DH. And so he's rotating those bats through the lineup, trying to figure out which two of those three are going to kind of step up and take those positions. Because I think obviously Winfield and Farmer can play left field. If one of those guys locks down left field and gets the bat going, and Borba can start hitting a little better, he can DH and he can play other spots as well. But to me, that's the only thing that makes sense. Am I off there? Is that kind of what you're thinking Schloss went with that start?
Yeah, he said on the morning show as well. He's like, look, I wanted to get Borba some more at bats, and he said, in order to do that, I got to take someone off. He said, people are going to say, oh my gosh, he took off Mendoza. His stat line was he was hitting around 200 coming into the series. It had nothing to do with that, right? Like his quality, Mendoza's actually had more quality at bats than anyone other than Adrian Rodriguez and Max Ballou. Like he's up there, and it showed this weekend on Sunday when he went off. But he was like, yeah, you have to make some tough decisions. You got to make some coaches calls at times where, hey, I want to get this guy at bats. I got to shift things around. He goes, it's early in the season that I can do that. He goes, you get SEC play. No, I'm not going to be, tinkering at the lineup as much. Same thing with Cole Chamberlain. You get into SEC play, Galvan's going to start every single game. Now, there may be an exception where he just gets absolutely beat up and he's just not able to call and receive the game as normal. But, I fully expect that Galvan to play every single SEC game behind the plate. And so Sunday was a good chance to get Chamberlain in there and get him some at reps. He's been working hard on not just receiving the ball, but making sure he's getting those throws down to second base. So you'll probably see some of that again on Tuesday. And you'll start seeing that some of the midweeks where, yeah, he's going to give Borba a chance. He's going to get Chamberlain chances. He's going to get he's going to get Winfield more time at DH to really work on that swing, because right now Winfield's just pressing a little bit. He wants to be the guy so badly. He has the ability, but the tweaks to his swing and then his kind of confidence right now with what he's looking for is just, it's kind of worked against him. And so, yeah, I don't see Tommy Farmer leaving left field anytime soon, to be honest. He's done well.
I think Tommy Farmer's done really well. I mean, obviously limited action, but he's had some big hits already in a very short amount of time for this Texas team. Well, we're talking offense. Let's flip over to offense. I mentioned they left the bats at Arlington, 243 for the weekend. Not the greatest, but again, it got better every day as the weather got a little better. The batting averages got a little better. The ball was popping a little more. We saw Mendoza hit a home run on Sunday. 23 left on base, not ideal, but they cut the Ks in half. We talked 40 last weekend, only 20 this weekend. When they hit the ball with power, 6 doubles, a triple, and a home run on the weekend. And who had Mendoza with the first home run of the season at the Dish on their bingo card? I did not. I mean, I knew he could hit the ball out. He did it a few times last year, but you don't look at you look at the lineup, and Mendoza, I think, is the guy you would least expect to leave the yard first at the Dish. Talk about the offense. What were some, I don't know, some nuanced things that us Neanderthal football guys won't understand? What did we see over the weekend offensively?
I think, Zach and Sean, one of my takeaways, right, is I think we touched on this an episode or two ago, right? There's always going to be a guy or two that stumbles out of the gate, right, to start a season. And we're seeing that happen right now to multiple people, right? You look at Jalen Flores, he's hitting 217. Jalen Flores is not going to be hitting 217 at the end of the season.
Right.
Right. And the other guy that Zach was just talking about is Winfield, right? I mean, he's having a really, really rough start, but he is a good hitter, and his swing is going to come around. So again, we're working with a small sample size at this point. When we came into the season, I kind of told myself, let's see the first 4 weekends and see what the guys look like there, right? It's 2 neutral site weekends, 2 weekends at home. You're going to see some good weather, some bad weather. And, I think you go a month, that's going to really show me kind of what that lineup should start looking like when we start getting into weekends like Mississippi State and LSU. So, again, we had some hard hit balls over the weekend that were just into the teeth of that wind. Zach, I heard you say earlier to Schloss, right? Like Mendoza hit a ball twice as hard on Saturday. They got caught short of the warning track, and then he gets one out that hits the foul pole in right field. So just kind of luck of the draw. What we saw in Arlington last week was not a fluke, right? We were really, really hammering the ball against high quality pitching, and that's what I expect to see moving forward. So no panic on my side, and just hoping the guys can kind of keep their head down and keep working at it. And, balls are going to start dropping.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the funniest stat lines to me is Cole Chamberlain's actually. He's had like 4 at-bats or 5 at-bats at this point, and he's walked 3 times, been hit by a pitch. He struck out once, doesn't have a hit, but his OPS is 650. I mean,
yeah,
but the thing is, like, if you look at what Tulo wants and what Schloss wants out of his offensive lineup, that's it, right? You're productive. Doesn't matter if it's a home run. Doesn't matter if it's a single. Doesn't matter if it's a double. They don't care. If you think a couple of years ago when Tulo first came into the program and was, instructing hitting and helping out, he said, look, I want to teach my guys to hit line drives. If those line drives happen to go over the fence, clap, run a little bit further. He goes, but I don't care. He's like, I'm not looking for them just to hit for power, because you'll eventually get to a ballpark, hopefully in Omaha, that plays very big, and you can't just hit it over the fence. You have to hit those line drives into the gaps, because that's what's going to be offensively good for your team. And so they're still looking for that balance. And, I thought it was interesting yesterday in postgame, Schlossnagel said, look, these guys are still playing hesitant. They're still playing like they're a little bit afraid to fail. He goes, we're allowing them to be aggressive. Everyone saw Max Ballou try to steal second base, and he goes, I'm not mad at the kid. He's like, I applaud him. I gave him a high five afterwards. I'm glad he did. He goes, look at the metrics. The catcher has a poor arm. He doesn't really throw well down. The kick on the pitcher is a little slow. He goes, you know what happened? He got a fastball up, so he was already coming out of his stand, so he had a little bit faster exchange. He happened to be throwing it tailed off to the right unnaturally, and the kick on the pitcher was a little bit faster than he had been, according to Cantu. He gets tossed, right? Like, those things happen. He goes, I want the guys to play aggressive. And he goes, it's on me and it's on the staff. They just haven't, they've been too hesitant. They haven't quite let themselves just go play yet. And so, I think one of the things you're going to see here pretty quickly is they're going to get the understanding that, hey, go play fast, go play aggressive. And they're allowed a lot of freedom within this offense, but they still have to stick to the rhythm. And I think that's what's missing right now, is that rhythm of just, against Ole Miss, you saw it, right? Against Oklahoma State, you saw it. Once they got going, it's like fire. It's going to go, but it's just putting the pieces together right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach, I know you got to get out of here real quick. Before you do, give us your record prediction for the Las Vegas Classic this weekend.
I'm actually going to go 3-0. I think they match up really well against Illinois and Washington. Texas Tech hasn't been playing very well. They got beat 2 out of 3 again by UC Irvine this time. I just, it's hard to know what the hitting and pitching are both going to look like at any given time. It's going to be warmer, a little bit thinner air out in Vegas. So, I could see Texas dropping a game, maybe to Illinois. Like, Illinois played a really solid brand of baseball this weekend against Texas State. They're a tough club. But I also think Texas right now is in a position where I think they can go out and they can get a sweep and win all 3. So,
all right, Zach at the dish, folks. Make sure you follow him for all your Texas content. He does recruiting. He'll keep you updated. He interviews Schlossnagel every single Monday, so make sure to check that out on Twitter, or excuse me, on YouTube, right? OrangeBloods.com account. Is that right, Zach? It's OrangeBloods.com.
Yeah, it's on YouTube
perfect.
every Monday.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here tonight, Zach. We will actually, Zach's probably going to host the show next week. Have a good night, Zach. While me and Mark are trying to get back from Vegas. I don't know. When are you coming back Sunday or are you coming back Monday?
I'm coming back Sunday. I'm actually having to take an abbreviated trip, just due to childcare and not having the proper setup here. We're actually going to be heading up there for the weekend. We're only going to see the Tech game live.
Okay.
We get in late Friday, and we're actually going to have to leave midday Sunday. So we figured going up there and catching the Tech game would be better than nothing. So looking forward to that. There's going to be a really, really large crew up there of Texas fans. I think almost everybody in our left field group is going to be up there for the weekend. So should
awesome.
be a nice little rowdy bunch up in Las Vegas. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be fun, man. We'll be there as well. So we'll definitely come by and hang out with you guys for the Tech game. That'll be a fun game anyway. It always is a fun game. So yeah, I'm gonna get everything set up and try to find a guest for you guys if y'all want to still run the show on Monday night. So I talked to Zach a little bit about it earlier, but we'll get all that squared away and figure that out. So just because I'm not going to be there, y'all might still get the bullpen on Monday night at 6:30. It'll probably be better anyway.
Love that.
Yeah. So so going back to the bats, we talked about Winfield a lot, and Winfield is a guy that's struggling. And I wrote in the 12 pack today, just kind of my 12 thoughts after a weekend series type of deal on SECunfiltered.com. The comment that came to mind was when the top of that bottle comes loose, it's going to be massive, because that kid, you look at him, he's a toolsy guy. He's a big kid. He's a physical kid. He swings a great. We talk about Blue and how he really attacks the baseball. Winfield attacks the baseball. He's just not finding it yet. But when he does, it's going to be fun to watch. I'm hoping he finds it this weekend in Las Vegas. And then, the aforementioned Blue had a really big hit Saturday in the 7th inning, a double that scored a run to put Texas ahead in that one. So, yeah, I think the weather killed them, because Friday I thought they hit some balls that are going out of the park on a normal day. Like if we're playing in 80-degree weather, I think 3 or 4 of those balls they hit on Friday are gone. So that, that's a big difference. And they were getting guys on early in the game. They just couldn't bring them around as easy. So, I am not worried. I'm not really worried about anything about this team right now. You can definitely see the pockets of potential all up and down the lineup. The pitching staff has been really good. I think it'll be fun to see tomorrow night when they play Incarnate Word, some of these guys we haven't seen pitch and how they come in and do. I assume Jason Flores will get the start. He was set to get the start against Houston, and that didn't obviously work out. So because we didn't play the game. I guess, what was the deal with that? Was it just rain that canceled the game?
It was horrible weather. The cold front came in right as the game was starting, but I live less than a mile from Dish Falk, and it was raining steady at my house last Tuesday through, the targeted first pitch. So I kind of knew they weren't getting that game in. It was a really nasty evening here in Austin, and thankfully they didn't. It would have been horrible conditions. It stayed raining at my house till about 8:30 or 9 o'clock that night. So they didn't really have much of a chance, and I'm glad they didn't force that one in, right? You never want to see them, throw out the opportunity of somebody getting hurt or, whatever the case may be. So,
there's no need to play that late on a Tuesday anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to go back to your comment about Winfield, right? Texas Baseball, their Twitter account, put out some metrics and a couple of different pages of statistics for the weekend. And, they listed average exit velocity, max exit velocity, hard hit rate, barrel rate. You see Winfield first or second in every one of those categories, right? He's hitting the ball hard. He's just not finding the turf or the grass right now.
Right.
And he's swinging the bat well. Once he gets that swing tuned up, I mean, I really think that guy is going to be one of the better hitters on our team. So again, that's just encouraging to me, right? That you're seeing, again, going back to my previous comment, Flores and Winfield just really haven't started hitting yet. And that's going to come on very quickly. And once all those guys start firing, it's going to be a formidable lineup from top to bottom.
Yeah, going back to Zach's comment and kind of the discussion we had after the Shriner showdown, a lot of pressing, and Winfield is to me, he's the guy that's pressing the most. We talked about being patient at the plate, and we kind of dove into the conversation about, do you take that first pitch? If you know that guy's grooving a fastball first pitch, is that something you take? And I see the merits. I'm an aggressive dude. I'd be swinging. It'd be really hard for a coach to train, don't swing at a fastball over the plate out of me. I get why they do it. I think Winfield, he's one of those guys that's taking that first pitch, and then they're throwing a lot of junk at him, and he's struggling with that. But I think once he hits that mindset stage that we talked about last time, if you're going to take that first pitch strike, you got to be willing to take some more pitches, even if they do come across, even if they do get over. You're getting off speed after that first fastball a lot of times. So I think once he can get a little deeper into some counts and just not tip his cap, and just tip his hand and say, man, I'm swinging. Like these next 3 pitches, I'm swinging. Throw them where you want. Throw whatever you want. I'm swinging, which that's what he looks like to me. That looks like kind of what his approach is at this point. But yeah, once he settles in and gets that confidence back, the physical tools are there, and it's going to be pretty fun to watch that kid hit. So, I think, we've seen different guys up and down the lineup so far this season show up and do things to help this team win teams. Let's talk about the 3 best. I'm going to put you on the spot. Who were your 3 best over the weekend for the Texas Longhorns?
Number 1, without a doubt, to me was Valantis. That guy just looks absolutely filthy. I was texting some of my buddies that weren't at the game yesterday while he was pitching. I was like, that's a future Friday night starter right there. It obviously isn't going to be this year, but man, that's exciting to understand what he could grow and mature into with a couple of years under Max, right, as a pitching coach. So he would definitely be number 1. I think number 2 for me is Max Blue. Again, he hit the ball again. He's still hitting over 500. It seems like he was on base every time he came up over the weekend, and that's what we need, right? We need Max to be an All-American if we're going to compete in the SEC at a high level this season. And I think the team's going to go as he goes, to be honest with you. And then I think based off of Sunday's performance, I think number 3 would be Mendoza. He just had a hell of a game, played really well. And, it was really cool after the game, seeing the post-game coverage of him and some of the clips and quotes about him. I knew we got him from Arizona State, but I actually didn't know he grew up a Texas baseball fan. So to me, that was really awesome to hear that, he used to go to games at the Dish and dreamed of playing ball at Texas. I thought he was just a kid from Texas that transferred from Arizona State, maybe had something to do with Schlossnagle, but I had no idea he grew up a Texas fan. So I think that's a cool backstory, and he really stood out yesterday in the field and at the plate. So really exciting stuff from second base yesterday.
Yeah, he looked really good. I had the same 3, just a different order. I had Ethan Mendoza first, and I thought, he hit 500 on the weekend, had 2 RBI, that 1 home run on Sunday, and then a lot of putouts. And again, he made a lot of tough plays look pretty easy over there on second base. Something early on in the season that it wasn't a huge concern, but I saw him kind of juggle some balls out in the field, and I was like, man, you want your middle infielders to be smooth, right? And early on, he didn't look smooth. He looked smooth on Sunday. Real smooth. It looked as good as you can do it. And so I thought, he really sort of turned some sort of corner or had himself right mentally, or, who the hell knows? Maybe it just worked out for him, and he just played to his potential finally, or whatever the case may be. So I had him 1. I had Baloo 2nd. 444 on the weekend, a double, that real nice double on Saturday to get the leading run across, and then 2 RBI for the weekend. And then I had Valantis. And I think, thinking back about it, I think it's hard not to put Valantis number 1, and maybe I sold him pretty short. He had the longest outing of any pitcher over the weekend, 4.2 innings pitched, only gave up 1 hit, no earned runs, no walks, 4 Ks. And like you said, man, his off-speed stuff is just gross. And if he can start to command that fastball, and he's got good velocity on that fastball. I think he's sitting around 93, 94 with the potential up to 95 type of deal. So once he can start locating that pitch, and I think he can still, as big as he is and as strong as he is, I think you can still pitch backwards, even if you do get that, command of the fastball. And that's a hell of a strikeout pitch when you've been dumping off sliders and changeups and curveballs on people, and then you just whip a 95 one right past them. That's tough to hit. Same three guys, just in a different order. And we'll do this every week. And what I'm going to start to do is get these from you guys early. And my graphic will include y'all's stuff as well. So it'll be a lot cooler to look at.
Love that. That's a great idea. Yeah. And Sean, one thing that I wanted to call out to me that's just wild, and being a lifelong Texas baseball fan, I can't remember if this has ever happened. I think it's wild though that our top 4 options for starting pitching right now are all left-handed pitchers, which is wild. I think I remember a year or two ago, I think we had one left-handed pitcher on the entire team, right?
Yeah.
So it's very unique and something that I'm not used to seeing, and I'm very interested to see how that kind of progresses throughout the season and how we can use that as an advantage. But it's pretty crazy to see 4 lefties up there at the top of the weekend pitching rotation, but they've all looked pretty good so far.
Yeah, it's almost like Max Wiener and Coach Schlossnagle just said, "Hey, we got to go get some lefties, and we got to stack some lefties." I think if you look at I think there's 25 pitchers on the roster, and they can't be exactly half, but roughly half of them are lefties. And obviously, some of the better guys are lefties this season. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a completely different look. I think you looked at that Texas A&M team last year. They had some guys throwing from the left side that really gave people problems. So. Absolutely. I am very upset this week because I did not get to make an update to my outfielder home run ticker.
You're behind the line now, right?
We were bragging last week about how we were ahead of schedule, and now we're behind schedule. I'm not even putting it up. We got blanked. The outfielders got blanked, not a single home run. They let Mendoza, the second baseman, get a home run, and they couldn't even put one out. But honestly, with the Houston game getting canceled, with the weather being so crappy in this one, I wasn't expecting much. I think we'll see some explosive offense out of the guys in Vegas. The last time I looked at the weather for Vegas, 77 on Friday, 79 on Saturday, and I think 72 on Sunday. So for the games that they played during the game, which I believe they play 11 o'clock Sunday, but they play 4 p.m. on Saturday and 6 p.m. local time on Friday. So that 4 p.m. game will probably wrap up. Well, I don't know. I think my special lady friend was telling me the sun goes down at like 5:30 there or something. So I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes, but it'll definitely cool off once that sun goes down. But so yeah, man, disappointed about that. So guys, outfielders, hear me. We got to get some blast. We got to get some more numbers on the home run ticker. And I did not get a hold of Mike. I called him and left him 2 messages. I'm going to coax him into making it the last stand, or the last stand hats outfield home run ticker. Yeah,
I love it.
We're going to make that.
So how does that work? Is that just collectively across all of the outfielders?
Yeah, the whole outfield. We're trying to get to 50. It's the road to 50 for the outfielders. Yeah, they got to hit 50 bombs to make me look good. Because I was talking about it like earlier. I think I was talking to Zach, and I said, man, am I crazy for thinking this outfield might be able to get 50, 45, 50? And he's like, I don't know, maybe. And I went back and added up what they did last year. And you look at a guy like Winfield, you look at Gaspo that's obviously got a much better approach this year at the plate. We can already see that through a few games. Yeah, hell yeah, they can get to 50. So I said it. We're going to get to 50.
Yeah. Sean, one of the things that I was a little surprised by, and, we might still see this go the other direction at some point, but, all offseason, you knew Tommy Farmer was going to play, right? But all you heard was that Easton Winfield was the left fielder. Yep. So I've been really surprised that he hasn't been in left field very much. He started game 1 in left field, and by game 2, he was already DHing.
Yeah.
Right? So
Tommy
I've
Farmer,
been surprised by that. And to this point in the season, there hasn't been a lot of defensive action in left field, right? So there hasn't been a ton of putouts in left field, but I'm really wondering if if they both start hitting, if that's still going to stay
Yeah,
that
it'll be
dynamic.
interesting to see.
Yeah.
I mean, Tommy Farmer made a hell of a play. Was that in Arlington or this weekend? He came running in on a shallow fly ball and just like dove out and made a play sometime this season already. I've already forgot. I think it was, man, I'm gonna have to go back and look. I clip a lot of that stuff, and I probably got a clip of it somewhere. But yeah, he made a night. I don't think he's completely deficient. I don't know what he got recruited as. Was he an outfield guy, or was he just a guy that they're trying to get in the lineup? So they've kind of cross-trained him with outfield.
Yeah, I think he was an outfielder by trade, and again, I'm not saying he's not a good outfielder. I'm just saying all I heard weeks leading up to the season was that was Winfield's job. So again, I'm a little surprised that like that didn't really work out that way, and I don't know if it's more of like let's have Easton DH and try and get going from a hitting perspective, and then maybe put him back out there. I'm not really sure, so we'll see.
Goes. I mean, I think so far Farmer. I don't know. I haven't looked at his average on the season, but Farmer's had some big hits already for Texas. So I think if I'm looking at that lineup, I'm not taking Farmer out. I'm not taking the bat out of his hand. Maybe he doesn't have some of the the upside potential that a Winfield does at the plate, but right now he's producing and getting runs across. So
and he's got power. Yeah,
he does. Yeah, he's a big kid. He's 6'3", 210 pounds, 215 or something like that. I mean, he is not your 10-year ago Texas Longhorn outfielder. Like these, you said it last week. And I think Zach said it too. These dudes are big, man. Yeah. I am really excited to see them in person and just confirm or deny how big I think this team actually is. Because I think it's a pretty damn impressive. I mean, that lineup yesterday, Mendoza's the only guy under 6 foot, right? And everybody else is 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", 6. I mean, there's some big kids in that lineup. So very physical team for sure. Schlossnagle has some horses at his disposal for sure, all over the field.
And Sean, you go back to talking about Farmer, right? And this is what's so funny to me about looking too much into results or statistics after 2 weeks, right? Tommy Farmer seems like he's hitting the ball really well. He's only hitting 260, right? So he's not one of the better batting averages on the team right now. But you look at a guy like Jalen or Easton, they go 3 for 4 tomorrow night. Their average is back up to 350 or 400. It's only had 17 at bats on the season. I mean, that's nothing. Yeah. So you string together a couple hits and you're feeling good about yourself and ready to go. So it's still way too early.
Yeah. Winfield needs the most ridiculous Texas leaguer in the history of baseball to happen to him, just to get him going. And I think it's over with at that. I mean, I think again, once the top of that bottle comes off, it's gonna be fun to watch. But back to Farmer, I think it's not necessarily the whole of it. He's come up big in some spots where they needed somebody to get a hit. Again, good problems to have that we're talking about. How does Schloss figure out where to get these guys in the lineup and who comes out and all that good stuff. Incarnate Word tomorrow night, they're 7-1.
Yeah.
And they look like they can hit the ball, man. 12.5 runs per game. They've scored double digits in 6 out of their 8 games so far. Now, granted, they're not playing anybody as good as Dartmouth probably to this point, but still, hitting's hitting. I mean, you get confident, you can swing the stick, and as long as you can catch up to it physically, I mean, I think they're capable of putting the ball in play. So tomorrow night, to me, not a game that Texas wants to stroll in to thinking about Las Vegas this weekend. Yeah. They better be ready to show up and play tomorrow night. We all kind of agreed. I think Jason Flores will get the start. He was set to get the start against Houston. So it'll be cool to see him. Freshman, pretty big guy himself. I think he's 6'3", 6'4", 200 plus. Big right-hander, right?
Yes, correct. And going back to Incarnate Word, haven't seen a ton of them recently, but going back to size of teams and kind of make out of your roster, it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago we played a game in San Antonio against Incarnate Word. over where the minor league team plays up there, the Missions ballpark. And that team looked like grown-ass men compared to us, like all beer league softball looking guys, like 6'4" with beards, and made our guys look like a high school team. So Incarnate Word's got some good athletes. They're a solid little program there. So I think it'll be a good midweek test for Texas. I haven't had a chance to see Incarnate Word play in person, but you look at their stats and you look at the scores, they're putting up some runs. So I think they'll be a good opponent for us in the midweek.
Yeah, another team that you wouldn't expect to be like that. I remember a few years ago, Dallas Baptist had a team. And I think they had a pretty decent run, for a team like that into the tournament. And, they got in the tournament, did some things. I think, Texas played them at least once that season in a midweek type.
They beat us in a regional a couple years ago in Dallas. They hosted.
Yeah, maybe that was it. But they had some hosses on that team, and I'm like, it's funny. It's like this. There's a community college in Levelland, Texas, like 30 minutes out to the west, in the middle of freaking nowhere, west of Lubbock. South Plains College. And 2 years ago, they took their sprint relay team to the Texas Relays and smoked everybody.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, how in the hell did the coach at South Plains College get 4 guys that would come to Levelland that could smoke Arkansas, Texas, LSU, all of these big track programs?
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from? And I think, you see pockets of that everywhere. And possibly, I didn't look at their roster at all. So I don't know what Incarnate Word's roster looks like. I know they can put the bat on the ball and they can put it in play clearly because they've scored a lot of runs. So yeah, it'll be a good sort of challenge for them tomorrow night. Hopefully those guys show up. That one, first pitch, what, 6 o'clock, 6:30?
I think it's 6:30. And with that game, I'm super curious to see how Wiener's gonna manage the midweek games. Right. Again, with it being so early in the season, I'm really hoping he can keep all of those arms involved and get a lot of guys in the game tomorrow. So we'll see what that looks like. But I'm kind of hoping and expecting that you'll see 5 or 6 different arms run out there and get an opportunity. We've got a couple of guys that I want to see that we haven't seen on the mound yet this season. And I'm hoping it's an opportunity for us to kind of show off a little bit more depth in the bullpen and get some other guys an opportunity to play. But obviously it'll depend on how the game's going and how the offense is doing. But hopefully it'll lend itself to that.
Yeah, I was looking at the roster earlier today, and there's a lot of pitcher names that we just have not seen to this point. As many guys as have thrown so far this season, there's some guys we just haven't seen. Some are still injured. While we're talking about that, I know Ace Whitehead's kind of limited early. Jonah Williams is a guy that's limited, and I don't even know what the plan for him is. He's coming off of a football injury from last year. Mm-hmm. What do you know about Ace Whitehead and his recovery? What are they looking at for that, you think? Or just what have you heard?
He had a bit of a setback. So he had his surgery right in the offseason, and he was rehabbing, trying to get back and ready for the season. And I don't think he was going to be ready for opening weekend, but he was kind of trending to like being able to get back, out of conference portion of the schedule. And then I just heard that several weeks back, he had a little bit of a setback that's going to put him back on the shelf for a little bit. So haven't heard any new projections about when he might be available or when he might be able to start throwing again. But I wouldn't expect anything for several more weeks. You hope you get to the point where we've started SEC play and we're able to kind of work him into a role, during that portion of the season. But I don't think it's going to be anything that, where he's ready in the next 2 to 3 weeks before SEC play starts. But really have my fingers crossed for Ace, man. He's such a competitor, such a great kid. And he kind of single-handedly, willed us to some wins last season and kept us in the postseason picture. So I want to see him get his opportunity. But again, you just never know, man. You don't want to rush guys back when they're not ready. You saw that last year with Luke Harrison, right? We tried to bring him back a little bit too early, and he just wasn't ready. He re-injured himself. Some of it may have been kind of, some mental things popped up. So it's just that delicate balance where you got to give him the right amount of time to rehab, but you also want to give him an opportunity if he is ready. So we'll see how it looks, and hopefully they'll be in a position where they're not forced to bring him back based on just not having other options. Right. So hopefully it's the opposite of that, where the staff is looking good, and if he's feeling good, we can find some ways to get him opportunities later in the season.
Yeah, a lot of young guys will get some run tomorrow night. It'll be fun to watch. A lot of inexperienced guys. So, yeah, just throw strikes. Max Wiener Bulldog status. Just throw strikes. Yep. See what happens. Las Vegas Classic coming up this weekend. You and I will both be there. Man, we got to fix these graphics. I apologize. First night on a new stream platform, and I did not expect some of the things I've seen so far. So that's my bad. We'll get that fixed for sure by the next episode. Again, you and I will be out there Friday night, Washington, 6 p.m. Washington's 2-5 on the season. Texas Tech's 4 p.m. on Saturday, 1-5. And as you said earlier, I watched a little bit of their game Sunday against UC Irvine after our game, and man, rough. I didn't recognize a single guy on that roster. I heard one name that seemed familiar, and other than that, it was all new guys, and they're pitching. And again, this is not to say it can't be great on Saturday when we play them, but the pitching looked pretty rough. I mean, I watched 3 innings, and I think I saw 5 guys throw in 3 innings for Tech.
Dude, nobody can pitch in that stadium, man. It's a little league park.
That's true. That is I remember a game a few years ago where Tech was ranked. It was a series. It was a Big 12 series. I took my son. And Tech was ranked really high. I think they were like in the top 5 in the country. It's back when they had, I don't think it might have been when Josh Young was there, but it was definitely Jace Young was there at this point. The Clemens brothers were playing for Texas, so Augie Garrido was still here. And they were the higher ranked team, and they were the team that was bombing home runs all season. And Texas just went in there and absolutely embarrassed them, putting the ball over their little league fence. Yeah. The wind blows from right behind home plate at that place almost constantly this time of year. It's not a long fence. It's not a high fence. You get the ball up at Rip Griffin or Dan Law or whatever the hell it's called, and keep it between the poles. It's probably a home run. Just being real. So, nobody can pitch there. You're 100%. And then Illinois is the team I was really surprised. 4-2. Series wins over Abilene Christian and Texas State. And I don't know how good Texas State is this year, but Texas State's been pretty decent the last couple of years in baseball. So
they got a midweek win over Oklahoma State this past week. So,
that's right. So I mean, I think that Illinois team certainly must be playing some good baseball right now. So what's your prediction for the weekend?
I want a 4-0 week. I do think that we're better than the teams that we're going to be playing. And I think there's going to be a very strong Longhorn contingent out there in Las Vegas that might, kind of give us a home field feel out there in Vegas, which would be big. So I'm hoping for a clean week. I definitely want to see us play well tomorrow night. I want to see the fans come out and support the team. Obviously, a lot of empty seats with the weather this past weekend, but tomorrow is going to be a beautiful night of baseball. But I'm calling 4-0 on the week. And, we're getting closer and closer to the start of SEC play. It's going to sneak up on us here. We're only about 2.5 weeks away. So I just want to see the team consistently get better. I want to see the pitchers go out again and continue to play well. And, we talked about natural surfaces last week. I'm excited to see them play on grass and dirt again this weekend out there in Vegas and see how they handle that as well. So a lot of good opportunities. I think you're going to see a lot more runs from Texas offensively. And I want to see the pitchers go out there again and just continue to build their confidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the pitching staff, it's just keep executing what you're doing. Maybe the results aren't going to always be the same as what you've seen so far, but it's one of those things where pitching's got to be hard, man, because I think you can pitch 2 innings really great and nobody can touch you. And then you groove one and somebody does something with it. And all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, can I throw that again? Like, should I throw that again? It's pitching has got to be one of the biggest mind F's in all of sports, I would think. Yeah. Just from that perspective. So I think,
Sean, if you go back to Cameron's comment here in the chat, he's talking about Ruger, right?
Yeah.
I was making that same comment about him in left field yesterday, that like he's come out and like gotten like the first 6 or 7 guys out in both of his appearances, and then like that 3rd inning, he just kind of hit some bad luck, and so it's just one of those things where confidence can move on you quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, it doesn't take long, and like we said, it's about just continuing to execute consistently, and if you're doing the right things, the good things will happen. So and I think the bats will wake up a lot this weekend, and hopefully tomorrow night as well. I think if they don't wake up tomorrow night against Incarnate Word, we might be looking at one we don't want to look at, because I think that team's going to hit. I mean, nothing that again, you look at the competition, but God, if you can hit, you can hit, and I think that team can probably hit. Just looking at the first 6 games they've played, y'all are almost about to make me try to like pick a 2-1 or something this weekend, just because y'all both said 3-0, but I can't do it. I think the toughest test, I think if they do drop one, I think it'll be Illinois on Sunday, because we've seen one really good start for Cade Bean. We saw one pretty rough start for Cade Bean. Which one do we get on Sunday? I think might be the key in whether they win that game against Illinois or not. So that'll be interesting to see. But I'm going to go ahead and go with 3-0. So we'll definitely we'll have a graphic for that'll go out later this week on Twitter. That's got all our picks. We'll make them official. I'll work on that. We'll try to make that nice and pretty for you guys. Thanks everybody that joined the chat. Thanks everybody for watching tonight. We're going to be here every Monday night, 6:30 p.m. Central Time on YouTube and on Twitter. I won't be here Monday night, but I'm working on getting Zach in here to run it. I'm working on Mark showing up, and I'm going to reach out to my man Hardball Harge and see if he wants to come in and talk some baseball with you guys, talk some Las Vegas. But I got to find out if he's even going this weekend. That'd be cool to
I'll hit him up
Vegas
too.
with
That'd
Harge.
be fun if he was there. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, that'll be it for this episode of the Bullpen with Sean, Mark, and Zach. Remember, we got From the Cheap Seats. We're going to do it Wednesday this week because I'm traveling. So Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll do From the Cheap Seats. We're going to talk about Texas running backs. I put a poll, again, it's a poll. It's a derivative of a poll. Who's the best Texas running back of all time? You can guess the 2 that got the most votes, but some other guys did get some votes. So we'll see how that works out. Find the Horn Takes podcast on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. You can find Mark at Occupy Left Field on Twitter. Great follow. You can find Zach at the Dish, and also a great follow. Subscribe, follow, and get notified to all 3 of these folks. You guys have a good night. Y'all get hooked.
Hook 'em.